You know, I always like to start my little presentations with the mission of the League. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. And that's what I'm here tonight, folks. And thank you so much for inviting me. I'd like to present some information about building resilience to mis and disinformation.
Mis and disinformation drives cycles of fear and polarization, risking. It erodes trust in our institution. It can even affect our health and safety, and worst of all, radicalization and civil unrest. And there's no silver bullet, and we all share responsibility for addressing this information. First of all, recognizing that everyone can be affected regardless of their political perspective, acknowledging that misinformation doesn't look the same in every community. Responses should come from and make sense to the communities that are impacted. Okay, now let's talk about all the different forms. Misinformation, disinformation, rumors, junk news, conspiracies, hate speech. It's all very harmful. And I'm going to get to a couple definitions quick. The definition of misinformation is basically false information that is spread regardless of whether there is intent to mislead. Okay. Disinformation is the deliberately misleading and biased information. Key understanding of the tactics. Let's talk about this. Key forms of problematic content. Missing context. Images, statistics, and information that's lacking important details, such as a car was driving down the street recklessly and it took a sudden turn, when in actuality it was a police chasing a criminal. I mean, there's all these things that they can leave out the important details. Faulty logic. Logical fallacies like false equivalence or a straw man argument. Hate and dog whistles. And these are the things that are very, very disturbing because they divide based on your identity, such as race, sexual orientation, your community that you grew up in, whether you're a minority. Conspiracies, blaming somebody for your problems, things that are hard to understand. Then of course you have something that was once relevant may not be today, such as, famous story, marijuana used to be bad news, and now, hey, you know, we're all having a good time. Right. And remember, it does not have to be false to be a problem. All right, now we're just going to highlight real quickly on the missing context, when images, quotes, statistics, and ideas are shared without important contextual information. And here's a typical example. You want me to take that vaccine? Mail it to me and I'll vaccine myself and mail it back. The paperwork stating that I'm fully vaccinated. And you trust me, right? Just like mail-in voting. This is an example where they use certain logic to dispute something else. All right. Conspiracy theories, innuendo is a powerful vehicle for amplifying paranoia and fear, and out of date. Now, this I want to talk about. What makes disinformation appealing? First of all, motivated reasoning. The content that reinforces our existing bias is easier to believe and accept as true. If you have a bias against certain individuals and whatnot, you are more likely to believe whatever misleading information you're given. Emotional appeals. Oh my God, they're robbing our emergency rooms of necessary treatment. Oh my God, they're decreasing the police forces. In other words, it's always an emotional appeal that's very motivating. And finally, easy answers. People don't want the more informed, developed answers. They just want to go with, oh, you know, I don't like that particular community because I don't like the way they dress, or they don't go to the same church with me. Those are easy answers. So just very quickly again, what makes disinformation stick? motivated reasoning, emotional appeals, easy answers. And remember that they often appear in the same message. So, why do people create disinformation? The political agenda. Some bad actors produce and spread falsehood and deploy misleading tactics to persuade people. In other words, they want to get the power. Power is what they're after, which leads to the profits, because whoever has the power controls the resources. In fact, one of my colleagues in the league, he says it's the golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. Finally, and then you have the really bad actors who do it for pride and pranks, and they are developing hate and conspiracies that are invented strictly for promoting trolls who seek attention and thrive on chaos. January 6th, hello, the Proud Boys. Unfortunately, it's taken a long time, but they are being convicted. Recapping the problems, remember, it comes in many forms, and it lives in the gray area between the truth and the lies. There will be some things that are quite, okay, I'll buy that. And then it kind of leads you to something that isn't quite right. It appeals to your biases, emotions, and desire for easy answers. Politics, profit, and pranks motivate its creation. Strategies for action. Now, I always like to talk about this for just a minute, because I know sometimes, you hear some things and it's so disturbing, you want to get up and, for instance, I understand that there was a demonstration about Black Lives Matter a few years ago, and then there was a contingency that was, disrupting, shall we say, on the side. And you have to think about, if you go over there and confront them, maybe that only publicizes their message. So that's always, when in doubt, better not to engage. And I remember, and it's distressing when you have to go up and talk to people and things like that. So that's just kind of. Another thing is to consider when engaging, counter messaging, and structured conversations. And we'll just go through them kind of quickly. Don't argue with these people, don't amplify them. Do not repeat the language of the falsehood. When the league kind of shares with us this thought. If you hear something that's obviously not right, you may address it like, well, I heard something about this topic, but these are the facts that we know. So in other words, don't repeat the falsehood. Don't embarrass them, ridiculing them. That only drives them more into the corner and makes people madder. For those who are motivated and wish to confront some people, consider these points. Is there a tipping point? For instance, when you see something on the internet and it might be reaching 100,000 people, 500,000 people, that might be a tipping point to say, I think it's time to dispute what is being said. Same thing with data deficit. They can give a lot of facts, but they're not really getting the good information out. So again, that might be an instance where you might want to participate or get involved, I should say. And then removing obstacles. When you are directly engaging with people where the misleading information creates a practical obstacle to moving forward, which is a lot of politics nowadays. Here's kind of a technique, pre-bunking, getting ahead of the rumors. Learn about what is the opposition saying, and then you may be ready to counter what they say with the actual information that you believe is correct. Again, in counter messaging, you start with the facts, you warn about the myth, you explain their fallacy and how it doesn't make sense, and then you kind of repeat the fact. If you do have folks who you think you can have a conversation with, this sometimes will work. You can ask questions, start a conversation with them, find out why do you feel this way. And again, show empathy. My kid had that same problem in school with a certain element, and this is how we dealt with it, that kind of thing. And then basically, you share your perspectives. And then I just want to give you now some opportunities, because if everybody's in their marching mode now, there are things to do. There is this organization called the Civic Listening Corps, and they provide a little bit of training, and they ask you to listen or observe certain websites, internet, and to report it. And I know I talked to one of the people who was running this organization. They're happy if you do it once a month, if say you listen to a particular newscast or whatever once a month or once a week, and then you report it to them, they're happy. Because what they're trying to do is build information. Because once you get a data bank as to where this information is coming from, hopefully it can be countered. And again, that's the benefits of civic listening. And here, okay, I want to see everybody writing this number down now. Okay, and now, the other thing I wanted to share with you is this organization, the Michiganders for Fair and Transparent Elections. And I gave Liz the card already, and this was a terrific presentation, and it was called Dark or Secret Money in Politics. And Hank and they have done some incredible research and have great statistics about how money now drives corporations, the government, and it's scary. It's very scary. He was explaining to us how close to 75% of representatives or congressmen are spending their time fundraising. It's unbelievable. It's very discouraging. Anyway, so listen, Hank is a fabulous presentation, and okay, I'll admit, his PowerPoint's a lot better than mine. Okay, but I just want to let you know about that, all right? And then, of course, for those of you who have nothing to do on June 3rd, but
You do have something to do.
we have our, the League of Women Voters, Oakland area is having our annual meeting and brunch. And I know that Tyler, they came last year. And we're having Professor David Dulio speak. And the reason I really want to share, Professor Dulio is an Oakland University professor of political science. And I've had the opportunity to hear his speech on several speeches on multiple topics. And not only is he informative, engaging, but he's also very entertaining. And so, please come. Don't tell Liz. Don't tell Liz. And that's really the end of my presentation. Listen, I thank you so much for your time. Oh, I see a hand.
What was the name of Michiganders for Fair?
Yeah. Oh, I'll give it. Oh, I've got another card here.
She does our minutes.
Is that on our website?
It will be.
It will be.
It will be.
But it's not,
So interestingly enough, on Monday, I went to a presentation by Barbara McQuaid over at Fox Run, who is writing a book about disinformation and misinformation. Of course, it was an hour long, so it went into more detail. But you also have to include foreign actors, for instance, Russia. They're very big into this disinformation and creating troll farms for all of it. So if you find something you think that can't be right, there's PolitiFact and there's Snopes. And they're two websites that will fact check things. So if you just type it in on those two sites, you can, if it sounds fishy, it probably is, but at least you can get the facts that way.
You know, thank you. And in fact, I was going to give you a couple of examples of that, and that's exactly right. The Russian or foreign interference, and exactly what Hank talks about in his Money and Politics, the way the monies are circulated. It comes through back doors and things like that. You know, and another gross example of this and disinformation is the Dominion Voting Services versus Fox News.
Right.
Yeah.
Holy moly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so our next speaker this evening is our very own Bryan Watson.
we love saying that.
I know.
You haven't even heard of
This
This isn't free, you know.
He's gonna give us some more work to do,
There you go.
and we gladly will because we all worked hard to help get extended voting days. So now we've got to put in the time to help volunteer. So come on up, Bryan.
Yeah, I had to make sure I was wearing the right button tonight. Who am I representing? So I'm here representing voters, not politicians. I think everybody's heard about it. Who has not heard about Voters Not Politicians? Who has not worked for Voters Not Politicians? Right? We've all done this already. Right, everybody's signed one of their petitions. A lot of you have walked out and collected signatures from other people on those petitions. And of course, we all voted for the proposals that they put forward in 2018 and again in 2022. Well, guess what? The bill is due. This is a debt limit that we can't ignore. And the bill really comes in the way of, these are, we have made lots of really, really powerful, good, pro-democracy changes to voting over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And because of that, things are better, unless you're a local clerk. If you're a local clerk, you got a big, big job on your hands between now and the presidential primary, which is in February, we think, of 2024, which is not very far away. So we do have kind of a sense of responsibility. It's a good responsibility to kind of get out there and give the local clerks a hand, help them out in any way we can. And Voters Not Politicians, excuse me, has made that one of their real important initiatives. And what they want to do, what we want to do, is to get out there and reach every clerk in the state, really, but for us, let's leave it to this area. Work with every clerk, get to know them, talk to them, find out what they need, find out how we can help, how Voters Not Politicians can help, how we can help, how we can make all of these good changes that we've created, make them actually take effect. I mean, one of the things that we certainly don't want to do is we don't want to have, for example, 9 days of early voting. We don't want that to turn into a big mess, right? Because there's all kinds of bad things will come if that doesn't succeed. So there are really two initiatives I want to talk about from Voters Not Politicians. One of them is that it's called clerk engagement, and it is working with the township clerks or the local clerks, whether it's in Milford or Highland or Commerce or White Lake. I did this last week at the Huron Valley Democratic Club, so I had to include Walled Lake and Wixom. These are all the communities that we're working with. The good thing is, Sherry Masson, who is not here tonight because she's off having a really good time.
Unfortunately, didn't bring me to home. It's a really good time.
But Sherry was was when I talked about it before, and she raised her hand and said, "We work with the clerks all the time. We know them. And I think she was talking about Indivisible. And so that's why I'm here tonight, because we're looking for clerk engagement volunteers. And the job is really getting to know the clerk, if you don't already, and sitting down with them to find out what does the clerk's office need in order to make these initiatives succeed. And then bring it back to Voters Not Politicians. Maybe they need legislation passed. Certainly they need money. Almost always they need people. These are the things that I know that they're looking for. In some cases, they just need some clarification. They don't quite understand. These are big proposals we passed. So they need some clarification. For that, some of us understand the proposals pretty well. If not, Voters Not Politicians has lots of people who can come in and work with the clerk's office. So clerk engagement is one. I'll give you the URL. I'm sure it'll be in the newsletter or on the website.
It was in the newsletter, if you're interested.
Was it? That's right. In fact, I gave you the one that didn't work.
But I put the one that worked in the newsletter.
So votersnotpoliticians.com. There's a big button on the front page that says volunteer. Click on that, fill it out, tell them you want to be a clerk engagement volunteer. The other initiative that VNP I can't keep saying voters, not politicians, too many syllables. But the other initiative that VNP is working on very strongly is called the Legislative Liaison, and we're looking for volunteers for that as well. What does the Legislative Liaison volunteer do? So I'm one, and let me tell you, I'm learning as we go. But the job of the volunteer is to work with your local Michigan legislator. It's really wonderful to go to the, we have these meetings of the VNP legislative liaisons, and people get in there and they talk, and you can just hear the tone in their voices and go, they're in a blue district. They're in a blue district. Their legislators, their senators, Jeremy Moss, their senator is Rosemary Bayer, and I raise my hand and I go, okay, I got Jim Runstead, and apparently I have Matt Maddock, but nobody's seen him. So those are my two. The job is to, no, thank you. But the job is, seriously, is to, as you probably know, the legislative margins in each of the houses is this small. Like one vote switches sides and we're done. There's no majority. So taking care of all the work that needs to be done, particularly from VNP's standpoint, which is the elections, and again, these proposals that we passed. To get that work done means that we need to go out and capture or persuade or encourage, or in some cases, put an end to some of the work, and some of the opposition, certainly, put off that as much as possible. That's the job. It's easy to describe. I'll tell you that it's hard to do. Mr. Runstead now knows who I am. I've been to 3 of his community meetings so far, and I've become more familiar to him in each one. But anyway, that's the job. And the important thing about both of these volunteer positions or volunteer efforts is it is working on behalf of voters, not politicians. So as you do it, whether it's a legislative liaison or certainly working with the clerk engagement, it's a nonpartisan, take off your political hat and put on your I'm here to help hat. Even take off the Indivisible badge. Tonight I'm wearing this button. But you have to adopt that kind of bipartisan, nonpartisan approach to the work. It is the legislative liaison work. I don't want to discourage you. It's actually fun if you do it the right way. But we do need as many volunteers as we can get, as many people as we can get to interact with the legislators to get this work done in the legislature, and so it's important. The place to go to register, voters.politicians.com/volunteer. Can't miss it. Great big box. It's right next to the box that says donate. Click either one. It's okay. But anyway, so that's it. Thank you very much, and thanks for the time. It's good to see you all again.
I know Sherry Masson and I are both volunteering for the village of Milford with their clerk, because we both live in the village, so we'll be doing that. Thanks, Bryan, and thanks, Maria.